Hello, and welcome to the Come to Your Senses podcast. I'm your host, embodiment-based coach, Mary Lofgren. Here, we explore how to live bravely and beautifully through a lifestyle of embodiment. You'll hear gems to empower you around mindset, mindfulness, somatic psychology, and neuroscience, as well as beauty, food, style, and the art of slow living to meet your soul through the senses. I am so happy that you're here. Let's begin. Hello, beautiful beings, and welcome to Come to Your Senses. I am so excited to share with you today a Come to Your Senses conversation with my friend and my inspiration, Meena Bhasin. Meena is a creator, a violist, a mother, a feminist, a cultural curator, and a pleasure activist. Meena is one of our guest teachers and guest artists in the Come to Your Senses coterie, and she is also performing live at the upcoming Renaissance of the Body happening on October 24th. You can learn more about that and claim your free seat at schoolofsensualliving.com/body or in the link below this episode. I wanted to share Meena's magic with you in the spirit of enticing you to come and have your senses ravished at Renaissance of the Body. But I've been wanting to have Meena on the podcast for a really long time because while I've never met Meena in person, I feel that I know her so intimately because of how she shares vulnerably, visibly, and transparently her journey of coming home to her own sensuality on her social media, which is called Sensual Reveler. And so Meena was born in New York to an Iranian Jewish mother, a Punjabi Sikh father, both of whom rejected organized religion. Her identity has never fit neatly into a box, and she's struggled to find the safety that she seeks in the world. Meena has been on a rewilding journey, peeling back layer by layer of the conditioning, programming, and brainwashing of our broken systems. Through vulnerable, expressive movement and thought-provoking insights, she shares her journey of creating an alternative reality in which radical self-love and pleasure are the guiding compass for our lives. And so without further ado, welcome Meena. So how I first met you is through our mutual friend, Ali Monday. And I remember seeing your post. She shared one of your posts on Instagram and just feeling like, who have I just stumbled upon? And how can I become her pilgrim? Because it was so there's a lot of places where you can access videos of sensual erotic movement, on social media. But what really struck me about your videos is the way that I felt you. It wasn't just something beautiful. It was something so deeply meaningful and a beauty that transcended prettiness. And so I wonder, another thing I want to share that I love about what you share is that in addition to your movement, you also share very vulnerable insights where you're not just telling us who you are and what you do, but you're really sharing a diary and a log of who you are discovering yourself to be as you shed these layers of programming. And I'm curious if that's what it feels like when you put stuff out there.
No, what a good question. And I just want to say thank you for seeing me, because that it's really scary to just, yeah, put it all out there, hang all the dirty laundry out there. Especially as someone who sought perfection, and that word of like being perfect was like my North Star as like a teenager, especially. Um, but yeah, I just so appreciate being seen and understood in what I am like laying bare on the
Mm-hmm.
internet. Because I think a lot of people don't understand actually what I'm doing. And I've actually hit upon quite a bit of tension between the idea of like, do I handhold from, right, the place where people are judging, people are yeah, thinking, I'm sure, all sorts of thoughts. I mean, I know all sorts of thoughts about what I'm doing, which to me feels so not true and not authentic. But like, is it my place? Is my place here in the world, in the way that I feel called to show up the way you just described? Is my place to take people from that place of judgment all the way through to where I am? Or is it to show up where I am and allow for that judgment to be there and to just keep showing up and hoping that over time, if people continue to see this, they'll kind of gradually shed some of that, or they won't. But that's the invitation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it has definitely been yeah, it's been something I've thought about a lot in terms of like, am I being received the way that I am showing up, and the way that I'm like intending to be received, and how much is it my responsibility to be received in a certain way, because I can't control that. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and that's something I so appreciate about the way that you show up is that, like, that's clear
Mm,
that you are not uh, censoring anything for the point of the receiver. You're giving the gift of what's authentic.
mm,
And I imagine, like you said, that you used to have your North Star as perfectionism.
mm-hmm,
And I can only imagine that, being a trained violist, that's
mm, mm-hmm,
a big part of just the embedding and the imprinting of how you achieve in your career. And I would imagine that there was some sort of reckoning or revolution that happened inside of you that led to this desire to just spill your authenticity forward.
mm, mm.
And I'm curious if you might share about that.
Yeah, such a good way of describing it. 100%. Yeah, I started playing the violin when I was 4 years old. Um, I did a lot of performing at a very young age, and touring the world and doing all sorts of amazing things that it allowed me to do. Um, and I think there's always a dark side. There's always a shadow. I mean, there was a lot of brightness. There was a lot of yeah, going towards the light and light and all that stuff, but there's always a shadow. And I think for me specifically, and I imagine a lot of people can relate to this who have trained in various, um, especially classical forms, but anything where that it requires just an intensity of showing up to practice over and over the thing that you're trying to get to emulate some sort of ideal, right? In my case, it was an ideal sound creation, an ideal technique replication, all that kind of stuff, that you actually lose a lot of creativity in the process. And that actually, even though we see these art forms as art and as creative, um, you know, pursuits, I guess, often the creativity gets kind of sucked out because production is actually more of what it ends up being. For me, the clarity of understanding masculine and feminine energies, which I know can be loaded because obviously we're dealing with a world that is not just those two things. But if we're just using those as placeholders for yin yang, once I started to realize how much feminine energy is in this creation place and masculine energy can be in this production place, I don't know, it kind of started, I started to see things in it just through a different lens. And I realized that for me, I am a creator. Like, I am someone who's meant to be sourcing from a place of newness, of like life force, of like all this stuff that feels juicy and new and like and wild and not always pretty and like just really raw. And that like there is sort of maybe a place for that in classical music, but it's very much on the fringes if it's there. And so, yeah, so honestly, like just in the last few years, there's been a huge reconciling and questioning of a lot of what I've been trained to do, but also like what I love doing, trying to just like take out the, I mean, it's kind of, like what I've been trying to do in general. It's like the peeling away of the toxicity that also has infiltrated spaces that ought to be so pure and ought to be so, creative. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. these, these little mini micro corruptions of things,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because I hadn't thought before about the necessity of repetition in art and particularly in creating sound and the seeking of that sound and how much rigidity is involved in that. I remember teaching a Koya class, and, Koya is a movement method that's all based on focusing less on how it looks, more on how it feels. And there was a classically trained dancer who just sobbed the whole class, just pouring tears. And afterwards, she said, I've literally never, ever thought about not focusing on how it looks,
Yes.
And it was just, it was like, I really got in that moment how even the virtuosos among us may not feel necessarily that creative.
Yeah. Well, or they do, and they're being stunted in their creativity. And it takes a lot of undoing. And I'm sure that dancer felt that way, that like, you're not just then stepping into, oh, okay, I'm just going to be creative now. You're like, there's so many layers that have been drilled into you that make it really hard. Yeah. Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of grief.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you might share anything about that, of just grieving your own creativity and your own life force, in your musical career, but just also in general as you walk this path of rewilding.
Yeah, well, actually, as you asked the question about even just from the music standpoint, since it was such a huge part of, when you start something at age 4, it's very formative. So I actually did this really incredible, I had this very incredible experience where through dance, through movement, and some of the practice that I'm happy to share about the lineage and the sort of, but it's called Ishtara. And it's very much kind of like therapy meets sacred sisterhood meets movement meets, dance and sensuality and pleasure and all that stuff. But I very specifically brought this this grief, I guess, and this anger and grief, and like just kind of honestly, like when something happens that young, you don't even really know what it is, but you know that there's something that like is stuck inside, right? And and I went through this kind of alchemy of moving my body to a song that felt the sort of stuntedness of that little girl, that 4-year-old or that 5-year-old or 6-year-old or whatever, who was kind of being told to kind of like fit this mold. And I could kind of feel the the tension of it in my body, the like what I would have been and what I wanted to be, but just this like, no, this is how you create the sound. This is what we do, right? I was kind of just like playing with that feeling again in my body in this first song that I was dancing to. And then in the second song, really kind of allowing for like what I could imagine that really young girl like creating and moving, and like how she, the freedom that she would have and the like ugliness that she might have. And, and it was a really meaningful experience to move through, because it did feel like it could kind of help rewire a little bit and just kind of give my body that liberation that it wanted. And it's not to say that one moment changed everything, but it definitely gave permission, and it definitely allowed me to rewrite a little bit. So really, really powerful, as I know you are well aware and well steeped in that, the power of really allowing your body to feel entirely something that it felt, and then something entirely new that it desires together. Really, really powerful.
Totally. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that union of the grief of what was lost, but also like the reclamation of something that can't be lost happening at the same time. And I also love that this happened through your body, because I don't know about you, but, I've done traditional forms of coaching and therapy for decades. And it wasn't until, Koya was a real entry point for me in realizing that it doesn't really matter how compartmentalized these things can become in my mind, or how reasoned through they can become, until I can actually feel it,
Yes. Yeah.
And it reminds me of another question that I wanted to ask you, which is that one of the things that I hear you talk about a lot on your Instagram is erotic energy. And here at Come to Your Senses, we really take on that definition of Audre Lorde's uses of the erotic. The erotic as power, as just our fully feeling self. And pleasure, you talk a lot about pleasure, as I do too. And, a big dimension of pleasure is like feeling good and feeling satisfied and feeling gratified. But there's also this other dimension of pleasure that, and I experience this all the time, of like imposter syndrome. Like if there's ever a moment where I'm not in my pleasure, like, what the fuck do I have to tell people about, And I see you go through just the many flavors of pleasure. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the erotic as it fuels your life today. Because I sense that there's a lot of connectivity between your little girl and this definition of the erotic that we're talking about here right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm having numerous thoughts. Just if we're bringing the little girl in, I mean, I think just my reconnection with my erotic energy, because I think it is there in all of us. And it definitely was there in me, less as like, I wouldn't have identified it as like sexual energy, but I would have identified it as like very free and very like tapped into something very deep inside of me. And like, even just to the extent that like I loved running around naked, and I loved just like being in this very like free form, telling everyone everything. I mean, this is not new that I'm in a way like, able to be so vulnerable, but it gets shut down, right? It gets shut down. And for me, it got shut down for a long time. But I know that there was that kind of just gravitational pull to that feeling of aliveness, that feeling of like, I want to feel it all. Like I want to like just cry for hours listening to like that song that makes me want to just like wallow in it, like in my headphones or like lying down on the floor and just, it was like I just wanted to like feel.
Mm.
And I didn't know what that was.
Mm.
But as I mean, one of the things that I have been grappling with recently also is like, um, why I shut or how the connection was lost between what that is and then what sexual desire and what like sensations um that like come from that part of our body um that there was never a connection made between that. It was like as soon as I started feeling anything sexual, it just immediately went into like, oh, this is what you do with another person.
Mm.
And in my case, it was very obvious that it was going to be a man. But that therefore there was like no space to really explore this whole new dimension that comes on during puberty that can enhance it. And it just kind of immediately went into some other category and was just like kept like just like a huge edge divide there for many years, many years to the point where like even getting married, I actually felt like I had to shut that down, that
Mm.
sexual side of myself because it felt unsafe in the
Mm.
context of a committed monogamous relationship. And then like, again, like in the last several years, it's been this like huge awakening of, oh my God, this is the same. This is all one thing. Like this,
Mm.
like just incredible richness of and depth of experience and feeling. And, we can call it pleasure. There's uh, bliss. I'm just thinking ferocity plus bliss. Oh, that's okay. That's a definition that Maya Luna uses for sacred rage that I love. But like,
Can you say that one more time?
sorry, well, bliss, she describes, I think, as just a feeling of like aliveness in the moment.
Mm.
But ferocity plus bliss is how she defines sacred rage,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
definitely relevant here in these red energies. But I was trying to remember that definition of bliss, which I loved, because pleasure isn't always going to be like, you know, I don't know. There's a pleasure in wallowing in your grief, right? And listening to like this incredible music, as I was describing earlier, and just like being so overtaken by emotion and like so to me, it's the eroticism is that feeling of just total aliveness and the connectivity to, I mean, I think you use the word pussy too, but like, that whole part of our bodies, the sacral chakra, that like all that like, um, that is very much connected. Like the need to separate that doesn't make any sense to me in a rational way. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think the other moment of just total awakening was around, giving birth and having children and realizing that, like, wait a second. Okay, so creation, like, of new life comes from here. And, like, so why should creation of anything else not come from there? Like, this is a source of so much like wealth and richness and like creativity and like how do we source creative ideas and like and just like frankly anything, how do we source any part of our lives from that place that isn't just about sex, and that definitely
Mm-hmm.
is not about like sex with another person. um so cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Well, you just really healed something in me because I remember being a teenager and I would sit in my room and I would listen to Tracy Chapman's self-titled album and just
Mm-hmm.
wail, like just cry and, you know, get so much like secret pleasure from it. 'Cause I
Mm-hmm.
was feeling so deeply, but I would also feel so much shame of like, why are you like, why are you trying to, like, you're such a drama queen.
Totally.
I feel like girls get so much flack for being attention seeking, when the truth is a young girl needs a lot of attention to interface with what's happening in her body and her being. And I remember, like, just when you talked about the symphony of relatedness between our emotional body and our emotional expression and our pussy and our sexual expression. Like, I remember once doing this stroking practice called orgasmic meditation. It was like 15 minutes of attention just on me without any expectation of reciprocity. And I just cried because I realized what I had been calling pleasure was in no way what I now understood actual pleasure to be, when my body could relax without the management of somebody else's pleasure, And so I just so appreciate you tying together that emotionality that comes with puberty, and then the redirection to someone else or having union with someone else, and all that's lost in that,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love thinking of you and me being in our rooms, like having these moments. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I totally hear that in terms of the self-indulgence and the like, what are you doing? And and I also love I completely relate to what you're describing in terms of like never actually even allowing ourselves to receive in that kind of way. I mean, I'm definitely one of those people too, who just I've had a really hard time allowing myself to receive in that kind of way. And that's not our faults. It's so not our faults. I mean, because that's another thing that layers on. You're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just chill out? Be cool.
Totally. Why can't I speak up? Yeah. Oh, so good. I'm going to go back to my notes here. So one of the things that you describe yourself as is a pleasure activist, which I love. And I'm curious what you have noticed, because I know that such an important part of this exposure this journey of exposure that you are going on, of bearing your soul and being vulnerable, is truly separating yourself from, what Sonia Renee Taylor calls that ladder of hierarchy. And so I wonder if you could tell us how pleasure and resistance are related for you in your life experience.
Yeah, so good. Such good questions. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Sonia Renee Taylor's work has really resonated, as has Trisha Hersey. I'm gonna say, Rest is Resistance. She has something called the Nap Ministry, and they both feel. And then, right, we're talking about pleasure activism. There's something that feels like an oxymoron when you first receive rest is resistance and pleasure activism as terms, right? Because and that's how it landed for me. Actually, when I discovered pleasure activism, I was like, wait, what? This exists? Like, this is what I've been feeling. This is amazing that this is a thing. But there's I mean, they both kind of feel like the easy way out, like pleasure, rest, like, yeah, okay. Like what's from a capitalist standpoint of like, must produce, you are equal, your success is equal to the measure of like how much you've accomplished. These terms don't land in that, because they don't make sense in that. But once you realize that, like, that's just one set of like capitalism has formed one definition of what we're here for. Capitalism, patriarchy, whatever, all these systems we lived in for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Once you realize it's just some faceless, like, person, group of people's definitions, you start to, just realize I'm playing on by somebody else's rules. And like, these don't work for me. Like, this isn't actually like the way I want to live. And this isn't, I feel, and Mary, I don't know about you, but for me, like, so much of my life in retrospect, has felt really like discordant, and like I have felt very at odds with much of the way that the world is constructed. And I've always thought something's wrong with me, for not being able to deal with all the violence, for not being able to keep up with like the pace of the doing. And so, I mean, the permission giving that, the permission giving of actually, like, let's just undo all of the rules for a second and like come in as who we are and imagine how the world would exist to be at peace in who you are and what feels like your truth and your authenticity, and like construct from there your own rules. Then it kind of all starts to, like, you start to claim things in a way that, that it's like, well, why not? Like, why shouldn't we be taking siestas? I mean, the Spanish have that, right? Like, why do we think that every body is created to, is created to be here for the same reason, but also like has the same pace and the same, things that make them feel like they're bringing their biggest gifts, their greatest gifts to the world. I mean, I think the resistance and the activism, and the revolutionariness, of these things just come in the questioning and the permission giving of like, no, you can actually do things that work for you, and lead with, I think the other thing to be said is like the idea that pleasure is the afterlife, and that pleasure is not here on earth, but it is transcendent. Also doesn't make any sense. It's just never made any sense. I didn't think to question it, but once you start questioning, it's like, why? Like, what? Like, who says who? And I feel like, I mean, some of my like most like radical thoughts have been had in a state of like in a heightened state of like multi-orgasmic experiences, which, pleasure is not just that, obviously, right? Pleasure is like so many things. And I know your listeners know that, from all of your incredible work, but to think that like I generate, like, not only do I like, I just start thinking so differently and from such a place of love and abundance and generosity when I'm in that state. And that like, there is so much that I think, so much shifting in the world and our ways of thinking, our ways of interacting with other people, and our like place of overflow that could be generated from literally just being in an orgasmic state for, like just building that into like what an experience is of being alive. And that's kind of like the most extreme version of like pleasure activism. Like there's a spectrum. But
you just put into words something that is so profound to me, because when I hear the word pleasure, it's like where my mind goes is immediately to feeling good. And this relationship to pleasure, where pleasure is how we recover and how we reward ourselves, both of which are a trade for hard work, And I loved what you said about how pleasure is a path to love and abundance. And I know that when I'm in a state of love and abundance, anything is possible. and I see other people through a lens of love and abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just, I love the language of that. And I also love the language of, well, first of all, so totally relate to that feeling of what's wrong with me,
Mm-hmm.
and just so much loss of life force
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like I've spent in my life trying to figure out what's wrong with me and trying to right the wrongs.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talked about making up your own rules, like what's something I noticed in my body was this fear that I'll get in trouble. Like if I break the rules, if I rest, if I don't prioritize, and I feel like it's part of our American fabric of like, you must fulfill your purpose in this lifetime,
Yeah.
and the purpose always being connected to what we do instead of who we are.
Mm.
And so I appreciate that invitation to just kind of peel back, like, yeah, why don't I make my own rules? And like noticing that somatic imprint of like, being in school and needing permission to go to the bathroom,
Right. Yeah.
and just that micro tension that's held in the body. And
Yeah.
I wonder if you might share anything you want to share about what this kind of looks like for you on a practical level,
Mm. Yeah.
like in your day to day, in your
Yeah.
work, in your mothering.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I've had to give myself a lot of permission, and I've had to like vocalize to definitely my husband, and and then to also just kind of, I don't necessarily tell everyone what I'm doing with my time, right? So I'm not justifying it to them, but there's a sense of like, this is a priority and I know that this is what I need. Um yeah, I mean, I do well, let's see. Are you familiar with human design?
Really, I've heard of it, but I
Okay.
don't really. I
Okay.
haven't.
Yeah,
I've.
and it's not super relevant necessarily, but um once I realized that there are so many different types of bodies and peoples and souls and like energies in the world, and that we really only have like one prototype for how we're
Mm,
actually supposed to move through the world, but then there's all these different, like, yeah, energies that need very different
mm,
things in order to be really expressed. um So I'm an energy that is not as like typical. It's not in the majority. It's not, I've learned that I'm not so much a doer. Um, I'm someone who is like here to kind of see things from above and to like, um, yeah, kind of notice and then think about kind of much bigger structural changes, and not necessarily to be the person who does all that, but who can kind of
mm-hmm.
observe, and who can, yeah, I mean, I think that's also a sort of creative position, right? Needing a lot of time and space um, in order to have these new thoughts, in order to see what's not working, and to feel what's not working, and to really tap into my intuition. And I would argue that everyone needs a lot of this, but really also understanding, like, my husband is more of a doer. Like, he's someone who is gonna get, like, it gives him pleasure. I look at him and I'm like, okay,
Mm.
that gives you pleasure. There's other things wired in there for sure that are not, but so just acknowledging that, like, if you're feeling at odds with a lot of the way that like the world is structured and you're not, um yeah, like that probably there's something in there that's really truthful about who you are and like what you need in order to um not just like be in pleasure or be happy, but to like bring your fullest expression to the world. And so we're losing some of you um
Mm.
if you're not in alignment with what you need to bring your work into the world. So for me, like, yeah, I it means that, like, when my kids go to school, I have a chunk of the day where I don't just sit down and do work or do the tasks, or like my house doesn't look as neat as a lot of the people whose houses I go to. That's a source of shame for sure. But I've been like trying to work through that. Like, what's wrong with me? Why do I not, but it means that I'm taking time to feed my body, like listen to my body first and foremost. Like, what does she need that day? Sometimes I go back to bed. Sometimes I have a, like a multi-orgasmic experience of my own. And that's often amazing because it will just like, I will allow for like a whole other dimension to kind of come in. I mean, sometimes it come, I end up wanting to write something or like create something from it. And sometimes it's just like, oh my God, I needed to just like feed that into my body. I needed, I needed to release. All these things that come from it. But I have had the thought many times, like, what if everyone started their day that way? Because I think that it completely shifts the energy that we do everything else with. Go ahead.
I just have a question there. Do you find that people see a change in you? Like, have people said to you, like you have a very elegant, warm, inviting, I'm searching for the word. Like, I feel so much curiosity when I see you, hear you. And I'm curious if that has always been how you are in the world, or if that aperture is widened and people respond to it as you are taking care of and tending this garden of your being in such a different way.
Yeah, God, that's a good question. And I think it probably depends on how closely someone is listening in or noticing. I mean, I will say that, I know I've brought my husband up a few times just because that's like the closest, right? I mean, we live in this nuclear family.
Sure.
But he feels like I'm not the person that he married. I'm definitely not the person I was before becoming a mother. But in terms of going through this transformation, yes, for sure. I feel completely differently. I am definitely more pleasant to be around. I was also like Ice Queen vibes in a lot of my teenage, early 20s. Like even earlier, middle school, whatever. But there was a lot of thought around like who I thought I wanted to be. And bitchiness was involved in that because it just thought that like, I'm curious if this resonates, but like there was this real archetype of like the like hot, sexy, like bitch vibe. And that you kind of couldn't, how could you be a warm, like that doesn't work. Like that's not a thing.
Right.
But that's because it was coming from a completely false made up place. It wasn't coming from like actual embodied, like, juicy, pleasure filled, like all this stuff at all. I was being like, I was playing the role of sexy, but I wasn't feeling sexy at all. Right. Like they're completely different things. And yet I remember thinking like, definitely in my teens and in 20s, like I would look at these older women who I don't know how old they would have been, 50s, 60s, who I could sense felt really sexy. Like and they're not a lot of them, but like when you see them, you know them and you're like, oh my God, I want to be that. Like, I really want to be that. And I want that. Like, I want that now even, right? Like just this real knowing inside that it isn't about the external, but you can't quite square, like you can't figure out how to get there, right?
Well, and you have that thing. A lot of my listeners, I think, listen because it's like one of the most asked for topics on the podcast is feminine sensual presence. Like, how do I be that woman in the room who walks with confidence and who speaks slowly and, just kind of these charms of the feminine for which there are multi-billion-dollar industries built around trying to, as Audre Lorde might say in her article, create the sensation of feminine charm and presence without the actual feeling and embodiment of it, And so multi-orgasmic experiences in the morning, that's how we get there, is what you're saying.
No, and listen, I mean, I don't do that. It's not like I do that every day, but, and I don't often have that's also like, some days it's like, okay, like I got there, some days I don't. And some days, it could go on for hours and hours and hours. I mean, I say that partly because I think there's I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that was even a possibility to just ride this unbelievable wave for, endlessly is what it feels like. But it's available and it's free. It's free. That's my favorite part. My favorite part is that I literally I do that. I stare out the window at nature. I have, some plants, I have oh my God, I can't remember the name of the plant, but these beautiful flowers that you can see these hummingbirds come in and just get the nectar. And it's such a turn on to watch nature, in that state or not in that state, but I'm sure it's probably for some, the sensation they get from doing certain drugs. But it's it's in us, it's within us, and you don't have to go outside, and we are all that, and we are all given these bodies that are equally worthy of this experience. So I think I like tapping into that because it feels like this unbelievable source that that's hidden from us, that's kept from us. And I even in my work have felt well, I'm not talking about that. I'm when I talk about pleasure, I'm talking about other things that are not just that, which is true, but it's also, let's not shy away from the what is it? The wellspring that we are tapping into even in these other ways that we come to it from listening to music or eating that delicious, chocolate or, whatever it is that we're just and the other thing I will say is that my experience of the things that I've always gotten pleasure from in my life is just is tenfold because of just my ability to tap into full sensation in all parts of my body and to not feel like I need to shut certain things off or that I guess they're no longer numb. I think there's been a lot of numbness. So even just awakening, it just means that any experience on any scale has the ability of taking your entire body to a place of, aliveness, full body chills. I mean, all sorts of just all sorts of sensations. Everything is alive.
Yeah,
I know.
absolutely.
Relate to that. Yeah.
In the coterie, which you are a guest teacher and guest artist in, the first several weeks are really spent on just that, on melting the numbness and heightening our sensitivity because, it's the old wisdom of you can never have enough of what you don't actually need. And so much of our relationship to pleasure is conditioned to be this thing outside that there's never enough of, and I liken it a lot to just the education I've received around diet culture and the scarcity of that and the way that binging wouldn't exist were it not for deprivation. And, that one of my teachers, Rachel Maddox, talks about post-traumatic growth and how you might even know her. She's in Northern California. I do know her. I mean, I don't. Yeah, but I know. Yeah. But how the body has its own natural healing intelligence, and that our healing process, is so not about fixing; it's about allowing. And so, I love what you're saying about the technology of pleasure being built in and that it's
Mm.
not a learning, it's more of a revealing.
Mm. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and actually you're reminding me that at this point like my tools have completely shifted. Like the things that I turn to now when I am like in a hard place. And I mean, you know, I shared this recently on a story on Instagram, but I have MS
Mm.
and multiple sclerosis. And it's something that I've had for 12 years, but I haven't had to deal with in terms of flare ups basically since the beginning. I've had a very mild case. But I just last month had a flare up for the first time in that many years. Um, and yeah, it was just so hard to find things that were gonna like bring me comfort and that were going to make me feel alive. You know, I was on crazy amounts of steroids. I mean, there was just, yeah, it
Mm.
was, you know, and yeah, dizzy and fatigued and like really, really tired. And so, but it's amazing. That state most recently, I've also been in like incredibly angry states. I've been in like, there's been a lot of stuff that historically I didn't feel like I knew where to take it or how to deal with it, or that there was anything that could,
Mm.
connect me to that like deep sense of self and aliveness and comfort within. And somehow, yeah, like the for me, like the moving, and it doesn't even have to be like really moving that much, but listening to music and allowing my body to just be how it needs to be, and like bringing, and I know this is so much of the work you do too, bringing like pleasurable sensations to like any part of my body, um that will just, you know, kind of remind her, my body, that like I am here, and like um
Mm.
I'm here for you, and I like can bring you sensations that feel really good no matter what. Um that's been like it's been a total savior for me in all of
Mm.
these really uncomfortable states. And yeah, and also just a reminder that like especially moving through something like an autoimmune disease where it feels like you literally are fighting yourself and your body is attacking
Mm.
itself literally, but that the blaming of your body is just so quick to come in, you know,
Mm.
instead
Mhm.
of like the like, oh my God, I feel for you so much, like you poor thing, you know, and like let me just try as much as I can to bring you things that only I can bring you, like only I can like feel what you need right now, and yeah, and sit here with you and just like,
Mm.
yeah. So that's been a really it's, you know, it's a new dimension of this for me, because it's only, you know, last month that I've been um feeling it in that way, but just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I love that. I especially love how, with medical issues of any kind, but especially autoimmune things, it's like there's like what I really hear you saying is a shift from treating the body like a mischievous child who's in need of discipline
Mm.
to actually sitting down with that child and saying, hey, what do you need? This is hard. What's the attention that you really crave and that you really need? What's going to make this easier for you?
Mm.
That's so healing. And in that vein of tools for tenderness, at the time of the recording of this episode is a few days out from the attack on Israel. And, it's something that is deeply troubling for all of us, but I know particularly for you, having a Middle Eastern ancestry and being raised by an Iranian Jewish mother, like I'm curious just how your heart is feeling, first of all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this topic has been so wrought I mean, it is. And I grew up feeling like I couldn't say anything. And I couldn't, like, that, yeah, that you would be accused of being wrong or, biased or whatever, in any direction you go, right? And I think the thing that I am just feeling so much, especially after all this work and everything we're talking about, is just like the worthiness of life, like of
Mm.
any life. And of like, I mean, I
Mm.
can't help but also, I've been doing these thought experiences of, what if the world centered around the mother?
Mm.
Like, what if literally everything was constructed? Because I don't think that's like a far-fetched way of
Right.
things being. I mean, actually, it kind of makes a lot of sense to me. It's just in terms of like an alternate route to the way we went.
Mm.
But like, how might everything look different? How might it feel different? And um, war and violence has always felt so like unbelievably wrong in my body. I mean, I think, I think a lot of people feel this way, but, I've never been able to watch anything scary. Like I have very strong sensitivities around this stuff.
Mhm.
And just like leaning more and more into like, um, yeah, like what it is to create, like to honor, like knowing what it is to create life and to know that like we are here to create it and to protect it. But like, um, yeah, I think we feel, I mean, we all, it's not like you have to be a mother to feel this, but I feel like the, the worth, like the
Mm.
worth and the worthiness of a life and what it takes to like bring that in and nurture it. And like, it just, I just can't
Mm.
help but feel like we're missing such a huge, I mean, we're in utter imbalance in the world. Like it's everyone knows. I mean, I think we can all say that
Mhm.
there's something majorly missing.
Mhm.
Um, and I just like want to encourage anyone who feels like they feel that deep in their bones that something is just completely wrong with like not just
Mm.
what's happening right now, but the way everything like looks and feels around violence being just such a like given,
Mm.
such a fact of life. Um, I just don't think that that's fundamentally needs to be fundamentally true. And I just think we need so much more of this kind of like feminine energy, like what we want to call just like that nurturing, creating, nurturing, protecting of life. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, I just feel, yeah, I feel that so strongly. And it's such a good moment to reflect back on the amount of times where I felt like I couldn't say or do anything because
Mm.
there's so many strong opinions and lobbies on this
Mhm.
particular matter. And then you kind of take a step back and you're like, but it's life. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, we're just talking
Mm.
about human life, like is it
Mm.
that complicated? Like, yes, but you know,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing in that idea of the mother. I was reading Cole Arthur Riley's This Here Flesh this morning,
Mm, mm,
and there's this one paragraph that just so struck me so deeply, and it was about, the way that Christian religions especially focus so entirely on God being immaterial,
mm,
disembodied, and invisible.
mm,
And yet, the paradox that God chose to come through the body of a woman and suckle at the breast of a woman and bring God consciousness into flesh and bone and marrow.
mm,
Um, and so I just appreciate the sacredness and the reverence and the simplicity of life,
mm,
and you drawing attention to that need for nurturance.
mm, mm. I love that. Like what you're
Yeah.
sharing. That's gorgeous. And yeah, very, very true. I mean, I was just thinking about like I just had like full Full body chills as you were describing that. And even just, even just that, like the fact that that happens to me now so much more regularly, where I'm like, oh my God, this resonates. My entire body is like tingling, right? Like that wasn't as available to me before. I mean, a little bit, but just that.
I wrote in the margins of that passage, am I secretly a Christian? All this time.
Yes.
Oh, well, I have written I've been kind of taking notes here as we've been speaking, and my eyes just went to the words love and abundance. And I'm so grateful for the love and abundance that you shower on this world just with your being, and so grateful for your generosity of sharing here today. And if people want to learn more about you, do you want to share how they can be in touch?
Sure. Yeah. I know you mentioned my Instagram account, which is Sensual Reveler. So that's definitely a good place to find me. And I have a website and a newsletter that you can also access through there. But if you're not on Instagram, then sensualreveler.com. And yeah, I mean, I love the idea of rituals and meditations and things that can just kind of connect you, because it's really hard to do it by yourself sometimes. So there are some free meditations there available as well, that can maybe, just be a little helping hand along the way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for following the path of coming to your own senses. Are you someone for whom music, dance, poetry, and art stirs the very seedlings of your soul? Do you feel like you have to armor up just to get through the day and long to soften into the warm embrace of your own body? Do you feel the pressure to work your way through it all and yearn to lean into your own magic and magnetism? If so, I invite you to come reclaim, restore, and reimagine a new relationship of ravishment and reverence at Renaissance of the Body. Reserve your free seat at schoolofsensualliving.com/body and discover how to release chronic survival mode and cast a spell through your senses. Head to schoolofsensualliving.com/body to reserve your free seat today.